Derek Anderson's nose before and after a vicious kick from Michael Venom Page last night at Bellator 258. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. Derek Anderson suffered one of the worst looking nose injuries we've seen in mixed martial arts history, and we're going to break it down in this video. You all know what to do if you enjoy this video and want to help support the channel, so let's get right into when this injury occurred. So here we see Michael Page deliver this kick, and Derek made all this worse by, for whatever reason, kind of leaning directly into it. I'm not an expert with fight techniques, so I'm not sure what he was doing, but certainly him kind of coming down forward into this kick contributed to the force and severity of this injury. It's important to realize that around the top of the foot, there's really no extra muscles, there's no fat, it's pretty much just skin and then bone that's behind an impact like this. And so there's no cushion, there's nothing with the pads of the gloves. This is basically like bone hitting directly into Derek's face. But as you guys can see, this clearly hits him square across the front of the nose. But again, look how much he lowers himself into this. I don't think there's enough time there for Page to adjust his kick midair. And so really the fact that he connected so cleanly here is because of the fact that Derek lowered his head into the kick. So then of course this was the result. We can see clearly right where that impact struck the middle of his nose, and the fight was ended by the doctors. Before we look at our anatomy, I want to point out the exact contours that we're seeing here with Derek's nose. So at the very top, that sharp little peak that we first see up by his eyebrows, that's actually going to correlate with the true nasal bones. And it's possible they weren't actually fractured here, as we'll talk about in a minute. But then the area we see that goes back inwards, that's where the cartilage of the nose lives, which can be just as complex and bad of an injury. So looking at our biodigital anatomy tool here, what I've done is shown all the different cartilaginous and bony structures of the nose. And all this gray stuff in the front is all cartilage. So actually the majority of our nose that protrudes forward from the face is made up of cartilage. It's not exactly bone. The true nasal bones are these up here at the upper bridge of your nose. So if we remember that contour from Anderson's nose, it kind of came down like this and then dipped back inwards, kind of ending right at that bridge where the bone is. So he might not have actually fractured those nasal bones, but clearly did some trauma to this underlying cartilage. Now there are specific names for all of these cartilage structures here that kind of make the outer portion of the nose, but the real key one that we think about with complications is going to be the nasal septum. So if I hide all those outer cartilage pieces, now what we're left with is the septum, which is cartilage that sits directly in the midline portion of the nose. It originates off of a bone in the deep portion of the face called the ethmoid bone and then protrudes out of the midline of the nose. When you hear about a deviated septum, this is the structure that gets deviated or pushed off to one side or the other. Aside from the possible fractures and cartilage damage, one of the biggest things we worry about with the nasal injury is a septal hematoma. It's where we get a blood clot that forms around kind of the septal tissue inside the nose. That can of course block the nares or the passage of air up into the nose, but more specifically can cause pressure to build up that actually shuts off blood flow to this septal cartilage of the nose and can cause it to infarct and die. One complication is something called saddle nose, where you get death of this cartilage and it basically deteriorates so that you get this characteristic dip in the nose where that cartilage used to live. So looking back at Anderson's nose, that's actually one of the complications I'd be worried about. Not so much the fracture of the bones themselves, but a septal hematoma that could be more complex long-term if it's not treated appropriately and drained pretty quickly. We might not have any follow-up on this for a number of days because if you don't address a nasal injury right away, you get so much swelling that builds up that doctors can't appropriately evaluate and treat things until that swelling goes down. So you either have to get the things right away before the swelling builds up, or you have to wait sometimes a week or so before that swelling goes down so you can appropriately assess and fix all those different structures. So the key takeaways from this video are that the majority of the nose is comprised of cartilage, and the only true nasal bones are up here at the bridge of our nose. Along with the possible fracture of these nasal bones, another thing we have to worry about with nose trauma is a septal hematoma, where blood clots form within the nose and can ultimately cause death of that cartilage if not treated appropriately. That's it for the video, everybody. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below, and until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.